Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the Birdseye View. This segment of the Black Eagles podcast is hosted by me, Yasin, and by my beloved co-host Kartal from Scotland. Hello, Kartal.
Hello, Yasin. It's an absolute privilege to be able to record this with yourself again. Um, I thank you for your nice words. I really appreciate them. But yeah, we're going to have a wee rundown of the league thus far.
Yes, I think the Birdseye View should not just be about the Super League in general. I think it's a great way to reflect on the season from a Besiktas perspective thus far, because obviously
Yeah.
the Black Eagles podcast is very much game to game. You have like a very like micro perspective on the game, the season and stuff. I think now is a good time to maybe reflect on the first few months of the season. When we last talked, we still had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as manager.
Yeah.
We had no wingers at the club. We
Yeah.
were still in Europe. Has a lot of things have been happening since we last spoke, Kartal. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on everything that has transpired at Besiktas thus far this season?
I think if I was to give all my thoughts, we'd probably be here for a couple of hours, Yasin.
Just surmise them.
Yeah. Overall, obviously, I was disappointed that Solskjaer was sacked. Of course, you can't call him a success considering the fact that we were put out of the Europa League and the Conference League back to back. But at the same time, you can't expect someone to be successful when you haven't given them wingers when they predominantly use a system that requires wingers. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's a 4-2-3-1 coach. In fact, the first transfer he requested when he came to the club was a left winger. We still actually don't have a left winger to this day, believe it or not. We have about 4 right wingers, but we still don't have a left winger on the squad.
Do you count Rashica in that?
I mean, if you ask me, actually, Rashica is a left winger. That was his best position when he played in Germany for Werder Bremen, but he's not been playing in that position at Besiktas. So I think you need to kind of count him as a right wing now because he's been playing as a right winger for years for us and for Galatasaray before that. So I don't think Ollie was given a fair shake. He didn't even get to use like half the players we signed. I was disappointed in Sardar for that. In fact, I'll go as far to say as I think there's perhaps an operation against Ollie's because we know that Adali from the start wanted to work with Sergen. So maybe after getting a message from Sergen saying, yeah, I'd be happy to come now, maybe there's a wee bit of deliberate sabotageation against Ollie, which gave him the excuse to sack Ollie and bring in Sergen, which, look, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a fan of Sergen Yalchin, not a fan of the appointment at all. I think it could be successful in the short term, but I don't think you're ever going to achieve long-term success with a guy like him. I don't think he has the attention span for that, to be honest with you. Now he's already talking. There's already talks coming from his close circle that he doesn't want to work with Edward Graf, which is something I was very scared about. To be honest, we kind of knew it would happen. I was scared about it happening, and now, unfortunately, it has happened. So I'm not happy with that. But in terms of on the pitch, look, I don't think we're playing good football. I don't think we've been playing good at all. But we have been getting some okay results in the last few games. Obviously, a draw away to Galatasaray in a vacuum is good, but we really should have won that game. I think it was a disgrace that we never, when you look at how the game went, with the fact that we went 1-0 up early and then they got a red card and then the goal we conceded was off a stupid mistake from ourselves and we missed a great chance after that. And overall, I don't think we played good enough. I was disappointed in that. The results have been okay. I mean, the Göztepe game when we lost 3-0 was a disgrace. The Alanyaspor game, I suppose that was Sergen's first game. You can't really say much about that.
Mm-hmm.
Basaksehir game I thought was pretty decent. I think the Kocaelispor and the Kocaelispor games, despite the scorelines, we didn't really play good football. I think this team's got a lot of work to do. But obviously, as much as I said, look, I'm not a fan of Sergen Yalchin as a person, I still want him to be successful because if he's successful, then Besiktas is successful.
I agree with most of what you said. I was very disappointed. I probably was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's biggest supporter in terms of the people, the people I talked to over on the wonderful Black Eagles podcast WhatsApp group that you can all join, and with other people. I was a really big fan. I thought he was a very great guy, and I thought if he had the right tools, he could have at least pushed us forward. I don't think he would have been a title-winning coach, but he would have been this generation's Slaven Bilic.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah,
if
perhaps.
he was given the time, but he hasn't been. We have to move on, and now we have Sergen back. I wasn't a fan of Sergen at first, and I still am not. But it could have been a lot worse. That's like the one thing I can say. It could have been something worse. So, and I hope at least now with Sergen he gets time. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he needs time, man. Definitely.
And I think he will get the time.
Yeah, probably.
Because Serdar Dale likes him, the media likes him enough to not immediately start an agenda against him. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
The games have been okay. I thought actually our performance against Galatasaray was probably the most impressive thus far. Because the other opponents were kind of, opponents that even a weak Beşiktaş should still be able to beat, like Kayseri, Kocaeli, with their start to the season. I thought Galatasaray was probably, even though we should have won that game, but still,
we should have won it. We should have won it every day of the week, man. That's why obviously maybe kind of went to the back of my mind a wee bit, but now we're talking about it again. I'm getting angry again about that game because that's a game that you should always be winning when they've went down to 10 men. Just not long after you've went 1-0 up, and then they're not really creating much. Well, we gifted them a goal and we couldn't convert our chance on the other end. That was the issue there. But I think we really should have been able to take it to them more. That's what I'm disappointed about. After they went down to 10 men, we should have we should have kind of smelt the blood and went for the jugular, which we never done. We sat back. We sat back too much with it, which I think is a starting tactic, and Darius Amiyen is fine. You can do that, especially in that stadium with that squad they've got. I mean, they do that sometimes against us in our stadium, so that's fine. But I think once you already 1-0 up, and then after that they go down to 10 men, you need to go for the jugular, which we didn't do that, and that disappointed me.
Kartal, I need to stop you there because this is not the Black Eagles podcast regular edition. This is the Birdseye view, so we don't talk about game to game. So we talked about Beşiktaş for a bit. Talked about what happened with us. Let's actually start this time from the top up, because obviously with Europe and with the European games and stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the two elephants in the room. I guess they're not elephants, but let's talk about our two big rivals. Let's talk about Fener first, because a lot has happened at their place.
Yeah.
First and foremost, Jose Mourinho was sacked. So we both said that Jose Mourinho wasn't the right choice. So do you think from their perspective, was this the right call?
I think sacking Mourinho was the right call, but I think hiring Dominic Tedesco was also the wrong call. I don't think he's a coach that suits what Fenerbahce should want to do. He's a coach that's known for pragmatism and being defensive, and with focusing on defensive solidarity before offense. And Fenerbahce teams should attack. So I don't think and Yasin, you know better than me because he's obviously had a long career in Germany, but I get the feeling that this is just one of these coaches that's got a really good agent and is keep landing these good jobs, because other than one German Cup, is he really had much success in his career? But yet he still always lands these big jobs.
The thing with Domenico Tedesco is that German Cup wasn't even his biggest success, because he won that with RB Leipzig, and if you win something with them, it kind of isn't like a vacuum. It's like people don't really notice it because of obviously Red Bull's money and all of that. It doesn't really register. His biggest success was actually a lot earlier when he finished second with Schalke in his first season managing them. That was in 17-18. And
Yeah.
I thought he was overrated back then. That was extremely lucky. They played haram football to the max. They played absolutely awful defensive football. They just had the most amount of luck. Or not the most amount of luck, but like top 10 luckiest teams I've ever seen. Like they got results that they shouldn't have gotten.
Yeah.
And then the next season they finished like 14th. He got sacked. They were slapped up by City, and since then they drowned. That's not his fault, but it's obvious based on that second season and the delusions he had to switch from defensive to offensive football, which his squad and he wasn't capable of. That showed a lot of mistakes that he did. And, he lasted 2 seasons at Schalke, not even 2 full seasons. He was sacked fairly late on in his second season. Then he went to Russia. I don't watch Russian football, so I don't know what he did there. And at RB Leipzig, it also didn't work. He won a cup, but in the league he was dreadful, all things considered. With Leipzig, you have to finish in the Champions League. Otherwise, it's a complete failure because of the amount of money they spend all the time.
Yeah.
Then he went to Belgium. We would have to ask Khan, but from everything I know, he wasn't a popular manager at
Khan thinks he was terrible.
Yes.
Khan really doesn't rate him at all. So the question is, why the fuck did Ali Koch hire this guy 2 weeks before an election? Why?
I don't know.
It's not ethical. You shouldn't be making big decisions like that 2 weeks before an election. It's not ethical. You should leave that until after the election, once the Congress has decided who they want as a president. And as we found out 2 weeks later, they didn't want Ali Koch as a president. He was voted out. Saadettin Saran is now the president of Fenerbahce. Domenico Tedesco's had a very bad start coaching at Fenerbahce. I think the only highlight so far has been the win against Nice.
Yep.
Other than that, it's been poor. He's dropped points in a couple of games, so I mean, it's just I don't understand it. And they sacked Mourinho because he plays defensive football, and they supposedly brought Tedesco in to play offensive football. But from what I've read, it seems like Tedesco is very much a defensive coach again. So it really doesn't make any sense.
The one time he tried to switch, that was the second season at Schalke, and he massively fell on his face for that. So bringing in Domenico Tedesco he's not even like a big name. Like he's a very he's like a big name in certain circles. He's not a Mourinho where you're like, whatever, just get him in. So yes, it's a very boneheaded decision, like a last-ditch effort. I think if I was in Ali Koch's position, I would have done a lot of things differently over the last few years. Very much differently. But the one thing I certainly would have done is just have an interim position, because honestly, hiring a manager again a few weeks before an election is really boneheaded and unfair.
He lost the election.
And unfair, yes. And that's actually a massive part as well, that Ali Koch, after how many years? Was he elected in, I think, 2018?
2018, yeah. So he was the president for 7 years. After 7 years, he obviously had to resign as Fenerbahce president due to the loss in the election.
Yeah. So, yes. So Ali Koch is gone now. Do you expect them to improve now under new leadership?
No, I don't. I think very, very tough days are awaiting Fenerbahce. Saadettin Saran's obviously someone that's got a lot of money, a lot of wealth, but he's not a coach, man. Ali Koch has a lot more wealth, so I'm worried about. Well, I'm not worried about Fenerbahce, but if I was a Fenerbahce fan, I'd be worried that is Saadettin Saran and this new board going to be able to keep up with the payments for the players' wages? And I'm sure there's probably a lot of instalments for transfers and stuff that need paid, because Ali Koch was throwing about money like crazy. So is that going to be sustainable now that they don't have the Koch empire behind them? I don't know. So if they can, it's going to be very hard days for Fenerbahce.
Yes, I think they're gonna have to cut down now because, you know, they don't have Ali Koç money anymore. But clearly, they couldn't operate with Ali Koç money effectively as well. During
Yeah,
his tenureship, they won a single cup,
yeah.
a
They
single
won.
Turkish cup, and I think a Super Cup maybe, but I'm not sure.
No, they didn't win the Super Cup. It was just that one Turkish Cup.
Okay, so yes, so it was just that one Turkish Cup, which
Yeah,
you must account is you have to say has to be a massive failure
yeah,
for their reign. Do you
yeah.
have something to say on Fener, or should we
I
move on?
mean, they've been pretty rough, but the thing is, we're saying that they're rough. But if we win our game in hand, we'll have the same amount of points as them. So we've had as rough as a start as they have, which is disappointing.
I just saw a report today, which I think we can talk about now, which is the DEBTS. DEBTS have been announced today for the Big Four in Turkey.
Yeah,
We can talk about the numbers briefly.
yeah,
Galatasaray have 500 million euros of debt. Fenerbahce have 387 million euros of debt. Besiktas have 366 million euros of debt, and Trabzonspor have 88 million euros worth of debt.
yeah. It's also, you need to realise as well that that's more manageable for them because they have more income than we do. We've got less income compared to our two rivals, and then Trabzon obviously have got a lot less debt than us and Fenerbahce and Galatasaray, but at the same time their revenue is a lot less as well. So you need to take these factors into account. So we can't really say that we're in a better position than Galatasaray because we're not. Because Galatasaray has a lot more income than we do. So that'd be my main takeaway there.
Absolutely. And speaking of Galatasaray, I think we can move on to them.
Yeah,
They had outside of one game, which was very funny. I think the last few weeks have had a lot of comedic matches. If you look at
yeah,
international football as well, like without getting into details, but the Italy Israel match was insane. Like that was a car crash of a football game. And similarly, from a Galatasaray perspective, the Frankfurt game was a car crash. They conceded 2 own goals in that game
yeah,
and lost 5-1. But they did rebound and they did beat Liverpool 1-0, reigning champions of England, Liverpool, with a star-studded squad, with all sorts of great players. They beat them at home. So what have you made? And also, they've won every game in the league except against us, where they dropped points. So what do you
yeah.
make of their start to the season?
Well, obviously, in terms of the league form, they've started fine, but if you actually look at the details of the games, they're not playing great football. I mean, Alanyaspor should have beat them. They created a lot of chances, but just Alanyaspor created 5 big chances against Galatasaray in the game they lost 1-0. So Alanyaspor actually should have won that game if you just look at the way they played. So they'll be disappointed that they didn't win that game. And they should have lost against us as well. So really, if football was if it was less about putting the ball in the back of the net and more about how good you played, they should have 2 losses already in the league this year. They're very lucky only to have that one draw, because those 2 games really should have been back-to-back point losses for them. Other than that, though, it seems like they have been beating the rest of the opposition with relative ease. You need to give them credit for that. Obviously, their squad is a lot better than everyone else in the league, I think, apart from Fenerbahce. Their teams, I'd say they've got the best top 11 in the league, but I'd say the only team they're not way better than on paper is Fenerbahce. The rest of them they're miles ahead of. So it's no surprise that they've only dropped points in one game against us. But again, they were lucky. Should have had 2 losses, one against us and one against the Alanyaspor. The Liverpool game, I think they were a bit fortunate in that because Liverpool rotated. Salah didn't start. Who else as well? Someone else who didn't. It was Salah. No, it was just Salah. Sorry.
They
Yeah,
did
I mean,
start
Salah didn't
Frimpong. They did start Frimpong at right wing, which is a bit
Yeah,
crazy because he's a right wing back.
yeah, that's crazy, man. Like, I don't see why he didn't play Salah in that game. And also, you look at the stats, and Liverpool had the better XG. Obviously, it's a huge accomplishment being Liverpool. You need to give credit where credit's due, but it's not as if they, like, you can't really say that they deserve to beat Liverpool. Probably a draw would have been a fair result, or maybe a very tight Liverpool win. But of course, you need to give them credit where credit's due, and the fact that they beat Liverpool is an accomplishment. And unfortunately, I think they are going to run away to another Super League title, which I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's still early enough in the season, but based on how everyone else is performing, I think Galatasaray need to be like 80% to win the league, just because of
Yeah,
how incompetent everyone else is.
yeah,
Like, we already had our implosion at the start of the season. Fener just had theirs with a new board. They're not gonna have the resolve to win the league now. And also, but speaking of the performances, I do agree with you. Like, I remember watching like the first two games of the season against Gaziantep and against Fatih Karagümrük. And remember, those two, like, Fatih Karagümrük are bottom of the league. And they did
yeah,
beat both 3-0, but those weren't like barnstorming 3-0s. I think against Gaziantep, they had like 2 penalties, and the first half was 0-0. They weren't really like amazing. They were competent, but they weren't firing on all cylinders.
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yasin, do you want to maybe move on to a team that you actually said would be good this season, Trabzonspor? I think have actually been impressive.
Sure, we can talk about Trabzon. Under
And if you,
5 Teke, I thought they would have a good year. You were less
yeah, and
impressed
so,
without
obviously
Europe.
it's still very early days, Yasin, but
Yeah.
so far it seems like you're going to be right. They won their first 3 games, 1-0 wins against Kocaelispor, Kasımpaşa and Antalyaspor. And then they had a few games where they dropped points there, so they drew against Samsun, lost to Fenerbahce, and drew with Gaziantep. But then they beat Karagümrük and Kayserispor. So, I mean, they're doing pretty well. Um, they're of course 5 points behind Galatasaray, so already Galatasaray's put a wee fair amount of distance between them. But this could be a season for them to end second or third. Really, it depends on what us in Fenerbahce do. Obviously, I hope they drop off a wee bit. But I think it's going to be an open race for second place. I think Trabzon, Göztepe, Fenerbahce, us could end second this season. I think that's going to be the real exciting thing for this season. What do you think, Yasin?
I absolutely agree. I don't think there's anyone settled for that second place. I think in the last few seasons that was Fener's to take, but I don't feel like they are in a position to claim second place. Like, they have to earn that now. And it's a pretty open race, as you said. It's not just us and Trabzon and Fener, but it's also Göztepe,
Yeah,
who are in the running. Potentially, I mean, they're only 3 points behind Samsunspor. They've started better than I thought they would. Maybe not in terms of placement, but they're not far off from the chasing pack in
yeah,
terms of points. Yeah, it's very interesting how tight every Trabzonspor game has been. Outside of a 4-0 win against Kayseri, they've only won every game by a single goal, including one against Fatih Karagümrük. They beat them 3-4. So
yeah.
they are a team that certainly keeps games tight.
hmm I think so far the surprise package of the season's been in Gaziantep. They lost their first 2 games, and then they sacked their coach İsmet Taşdemir, and they hired Burak Yilmaz. Since hiring Burak Yilmaz, they've won 4 out of 6 games. and drawn twice, so they're undefeated since Burak Yilmaz came to the club, arrived at the club. I think even they could push for a European spot this season. Yasin, what do you think if they continue this form anyway with Burak Yilmaz as the coach?
I don't think they will challenge for Europe. Because I feel like this is a new manager bounce. I mean, I'm surprised, honestly. I've not been impressed by Burak Yilmaz necessarily as a coach, especially in his last few stations, in last few jobs he had. Um, but um, but he certainly started out very, very well. Like, that's been very surprising. Uh, I mean, the teams he beat are certainly teams that you have to beat, like Gençler Birliği, Kocaeli, Fatih Karagümrük. But you obviously still have to beat them, right? It's not for a team like Gaziantep. There are no free points in this league. Like every point you get, you have to earn, and so you have to say that Burak's done a very good job. I don't think they're gonna necessarily finish in Europe. I think they will lose steam overall. I don't think their squad is necessarily impressive enough. But if they finish like 10th or 9th or something, that will still be an amazing season for them. Especially considering after the first 2 games, they looked in a very, very bad position.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, there was a team that I thought would have a good season this season, and that was Eyüpspor. But sorry, not Eyüpspor, sorry, Kocaelispor, and they're just they're basically, I think it's just goals scored that's keeping them out of that relegation zone because they're on 5 points, just like Eyüp, Kayseri, Karagümrük, who are in the relegation zone. They made some good investments in the summer, like Petkovic, but it's just not clicking for them. Yasin, I mean, I'm pretty surprised by that. I don't know about you.
I definitely agree. I think Kocaelispor. We both thought they might potentially fly, but they have had a terrible start to the season. They just beat Eyüpspor. That was their first win of the season. But it's been a very slow start for them. I'm surprised about that as well. They did have a tough opening set of fixtures. They faced Trabzon, Samsun, Fenerbahce, and us amongst the first 8, so they hadn't had the easiest of starts, but it's still very surprising that they started as poor as they did. Although you have to say that nothing is decided. I mean, they're only 5 points away from 10th place. So if they can make sure that it clicks now, they can.
Of course, it's still very early days. You know, we're only 8 games into the season, so a lot can change. I think Karagümrük, we both expected them to be bad, and they are bad. Kayserispor is one I'm surprised about because Marcus Gisdol is a coach that I thought was very good when he had his stint at Trabzonspor and really saved their season 2 years ago and kept them up and done a really good job at that. But he's been sacked from Kayseri after 8 games with only 5 points. Yasin, what do you think of that?
I think he probably left. I'm not as surprised, honestly. I was very off Kayserispor because they had a very long transfer embargo. They didn't have the squad ready until very late on in the summer, and they brought a lot of players in all at once. They brought in 7 or 8 players on a single day. You can't necessarily expect things to be clicking right away. And it's not like the players were amazing. They were good squad options. Like, they needed depth, and they brought in a lot of depth. But they didn't necessarily bring in a lot of star quality. So it's a squad that has been quickly mashed together, that didn't have a proper preseason. And so I think it's not very shocking that Kayserispor are struggling. And I could definitely see them get relegated now. You have to say, they only lost 3 games this season, and they drew 5. So they're not necessarily like they don't lose every week, but they just don't win as well. They are the only team in the league without a win thus far. Even Fatih Karagümrük have a win. So they are definitely going to be a team. I think at the end of the season, if they go down, I don't think they will have the most losses or most goals conceded. I think it's going to be the draws that kill them.
Yeah. And Another team that I think's been quite surprising for is Yasin is Basaksehir. We expected them to have a good season. They had some interesting signings, but they sacked Chada Shatarin and have replaced him with Nouri Shaheen. But it seems like that was just a very bad decision, as they've completely fallen off a cliff. We got one win in the last five, and lost three, one draw in the last 5 games. I mean, are you not quite surprised about that, Yasin? Chada Shatan was obviously a coach that was always seen as pretty promising in the Turkish football landscape. He was sacked. They've replaced him with Nouri Shaheen, and it seems like really it was the wrong decision.
Yeah, I'm really sad because before he went to Dortmund, I was a really big fan of Nuri Sahin and his stint at Antalya, and I thought we might see like the next wonder kid coach in football, maybe potentially. I mean, I will admit I probably deluded myself a bit and wanted him to come. I had some ideas that probably weren't correct, and then he failed at Dortmund, and now he's failing at Basaksehir. I think if he gets sacked at Basaksehir, I think he will have a very hard time getting a managerial job afterwards, because Basaksehir, for all their faults, are a very quiet, are a very quiet club, as someone like Çağdaş Atan proved that you can succeed at that club, and you have a fairly lengthy stint. He was there for a few years, which isn't a given in Turkey. So, so if Nuri Sahin fails here, and they just can't score goals, they don't have a goal scorer. They signed this Uzbek striker from Roma on loan. I he's not been firing. Is he injured? Would have to look. Is he injured, or is he just not?
No, he does play. So far,
I scored 3 goals. I think that's
three
okay.
goals, so he's actually doing okay, man. He's not doing bad, so to speak. But obviously,
it's the rest of the team then.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. I thought Başakşehir would have a better season than that. Speaking of teams that we thought would have a good season, let's talk about the team that we thought would do well and is actually doing well. Let's talk about Göztepe.
Yeah. I mean, they absolutely destroyed us, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Stoylov absolutely spanked Sergen Yalcin on the tactical board. I don't know what Sergen was thinking playing Najib in that game. But it was Göztepe were brilliant in that game, and they thoroughly deserved to beat us 3-0. Look, as much as I don't believe in supporting having a second team, I'm a Besiktas fan through and through.
Yeah.
I don't support any other club, but I do have a bit of a sympathy for Göztepe, as I think I maybe did say in the first Birdseye view, because their stadium is literally a 20-minute walk from the house my dad grew up in. My dad grew up in Izmir, in Balshova. For those who are familiar with Izmir will know where Balshova is. It's one of the main districts, and it's literally like a 20-minute walk, 25-minute walk from there to the Göztepe Stadium. So as a team I've got sympathy for. They've got great fans. It's a great club. And the fact that for the last 3 years have been under foreign ownership, which really you're seeing the fruits of that these last couple of years. They've got a good recruitment approach, and they've got a solid coach as well. All the transfers are made to suit that system they play, and there's a reason why they are currently sitting in third place in the Super League. Because despite having a very limited budget and not spending a lot of money, the recruitment's good. They know how to spend the money, where to spend the money, what type of player to bring in. It's not just a coincidence that they're third just now. They're third for a reason.
Absolutely. Also, I mean, last time we spoke on air, he wasn't sold, but they sold Romelu for 20 million at the end of the transfer window.
Yeah,
which
signed him for the year before.
Yeah, which is obviously a sign of their transfer model working. They bought him in for, I think, what was it?
It was 2 million, I think.
Was it 2 million?
Yeah.
No, actually, it was 5 million. I just looked it up. But still, you made 15 million profit. So if they can keep on doing that, obviously, I think if they can keep on doing that, I do expect them to be in a Basaksehir position, like basically be a team that can consistently challenge for European places and can cause upsets against the traditional big clubs. Absolutely, and
Yeah.
I think that would be good because I think Izmir is a city that ought to have a team challenging that far up in the table.
Yeah, no, they definitely should. Look, we're talking about a city that is I believe, the third biggest city in Turkey in terms of population. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. It's obviously it's got its own peninsula, but it's all around the sea. It's a brilliant place, man. Very obviously maybe not for our standards, but in terms of for Turkey, it's a very liberal city as well. Probably the most European city in Turkey. So it's just a great place, to be honest. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. But for me, to be honest, I'm Glaswegian, born and raised in Glasgow. But if someone was to ask me where's your second home, Kartal, I'd say Izmir, because it's a place I've been going to since I was 3 months old to see when my mum and dad would take me to see my grandparents, and it's a place that I continue to go to. In fact, it's the city I get married in. I married my beautiful wife in Izmir as well, so it's a city that's very close to my heart. I'm all for seeing an Izmir club doing well. Obviously, they shouldn't do that well where they're taking over us. Ideally, we'd be first and they'd be second. But yeah, I really want Göztepe to be successful, just not as successful as us.
Of course, of course. Um, uh, so we covered most of the teams that are of note. I mean, we spoke
Yeah.
about Galatasaray, we spoke of Fener, we spoke about teams like Göztepe, we spoke about the promoted teams. Do you have anything to note, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, just a big thing I think is that Ilhan Palut is again struggling.
Yeah,
Last season he struggled. This season he struggled. It seems like the Ilhan Palut bubble is burst, which is a shame because he was very promising for a wee while, but it seems like it's not really um, going to plan at Rize just now.
you could say he's the Turkish Postacoglu because obviously with him, he was also found out. And once you have a manager that plays a very distinctive style of football that is very risky. Once they get found out, they will either have to adjust or they will suffer. And I think we've seen that now with Ilan Palut, and I honestly don't expect him to make it to the end of the season. I think Çaykur Rizespor will sack him.
I think that's very possible. Yasin, is there anything else you want to talk about before we close out the show?
Just the usual. Obviously, if you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. Comments. Tell us your thoughts about the season thus far from any of the teams, especially Besiktas. Go on to our Patreon. Go to our WhatsApp group. We have a very lively chat there. And obviously, let's go Besiktas.
Let's go, Besiktas.
See ya.
See you later, guys.